Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. I always like to be chronological. I'm looking at the date here. It's May 19th. So you folks will be seeing this is Tuesday, the following Monday, a week from yesterday. So the 25th. Oh, that's Memorial Day. So Tuesday the 26th, a week from today, this goes up. I'm here in Jersey, in Richard. I'm with Richard Munchkin, and we're going to talk about his journey. By the way, after you and I met last week, and I was digesting and absorbing your energies in your journey, I'm saying to myself, Richard, your life is a movie. No, it really is. Without a doubt, from theater to movies, directing. I mean, that whole journey, to Hollywood and then to gambling. A major world-class gambler. You're an author. You're a podcaster. Your life's a movie.
Well,
It really
I
is.
I spent 25 years in Hollywood trying to get a movie made, not specifically about my life, but about mostly about gambling. And boy, that's a tough nut to crack.
I don't know. I mean, I mean, I know from gambling like Ocean's 11, they rob. They robbed a casino and stuff. And it's funny. Uh, I used to, when I was in eyeglass sales, Atlantic City was one of my best territories. So I was in Atlantic City starting in mid 80s to 2000 constantly, and I watched that city grow. And people say, "What did you do?" 'Cause I would go down there for 3 days to sell. And people say, "You're in Atlantic City, so you must have done a lot of gambling and stuff at night." I said, "No, I play tennis every night down there. No gambling. I don't gamble because I told you, Richard, I wasn't put on this earth to gamble and to win. So the gods told me don't gamble, so I don't gamble. Anyway, um, I'm really thrilled that the universe got us together, and we could talk about your life, which again, just to reiterate, it is a movie. So my Johnny Carson monologue has just concluded, and why don't you say a few words, a little background? I mean, you started in Chicago, one of my favorite cities.
Yeah,
So
I grew up in a suburb of Chicago and discovered uh, theater when I was 13 years old and decided that's what my life is going to be. And I had two passions. One of them was acting on stage, and the other was gambling. And in Chicago in the winters, it's, brutal. And so people played games, and every family gathering, my father and uncles and grandfathers would sit around and play cards. And my dad taught me to play chess when I was 3, and my grandmother taught me to play gin rummy. So I just loved to play games of all sorts. And uh, so those were my two passions. When I went to college, I studied theater and I was making my money by playing backgammon and poker. And, my plan was to go to Las Vegas, put together a bunch of money, and then go to LA and be an actor because I wasn't willing to wash dishes at night. So, pretty much that's what I did. And so my feet have been in two different worlds my whole life, the entertainment world and the gambling world. And I say that retiring is easy. I've done it 6 or 7 times, and but I realized I don't want to retire. And, what am I going to do? Sit at home and watch television all day? Uh, yeah.
yeah,
So
that's a
that's
funny
my
word.
bio in a nutshell.
That's a great nutshell, and we will explore elements of that beginning now. Retirement's a funny word. I've been, quote, retired for 15 years, whatever the hell that means, but I've never been busier.
Right.
And by the way, handling a retirement is therapeutic, you know. It's a therapeutic thing that keeps this thing working really well. So, what I'm curious about, I'm always curious about this. What first fascinated you with the institution of gambling beyond beyond simply winning money? Was there something else about gambling?
Um, well, what happened was my brother, my older brother, when I was in high school, I was maybe 14, and my older brother said, "Oh, I have a bunch of friends coming over and we're going to play poker. Do you want to play?" And I had watched my dad and my grandfather play poker, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure." So we played literally for nickels and dimes, 5 and 10 cents. And at the end of the night, I was ahead $5.20. And it was like the heavens opened and the angels began to sing. I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in the world. You can actually make money playing cards. And I just thought, yeah. And I thought, so I've had a strategy my whole life. When I wanted to learn something, I would go get every book I could find on the subject, and then I would seek out people who were better than I was, experts if I could find them, to really try to learn from them. And anyway, so I went to the library, I got all the books on poker, and I started reading them. And then backgammon became extremely popular in the 70s. Hugh Hefner was, sponsoring tournaments, and it was on TV all the time. Many bars you would go into would have backgammon tables there and people playing. And so, same thing. I went and got all the books and started playing and playing in tournaments. And yeah, that's how my fascination began. And in addition to just the games, I was reading books just about gambling, and the characters were so unbelievably fascinating. These guys with names like Amarillo Slim and Titanic Thompson, and I just thought the stories were amazing, the life seemed amazing, and so I was just obsessed with it. And I was a reader. I love to read, so I was constantly reading about these people and how they got their edge. How did they get their? How were they able to win money?
Okay. Which leads into the next question is professional gambling more about mathematics or psychology?
Oh, great question. It is both. And
Both.
so many people who try to get into it don't understand that. So the first step is to figure out how to have an edge. And it has to be a mathematical edge. There's no betting system that can overcome a game with negative expectation. When I was in eighth grade, I remember discovering what I thought was an unbeatable system. And it seems like anybody who gets involved in gambling comes up with this exact same idea. And it's hundreds of years old. And it's called the martingale. And the idea is that let's take a bet that's basically even money, right? Like uh, on roulette. You can bet either red or black. Now, there's a green one that gives the house its advantage. But so the idea is you bet $1 on red. And if you lose, you bet two. And if you lose that, you bet four. And if you lose that, you bet eight. And eventually, when you win a bet, you get all your money back plus $1. Right? And I thought, you can't lose
Yeah.
because it would be impossible to have, 10 reds or 10 blacks in a row. Well, I have news for you. It's not impossible. And you can actually calculate how often that will happen. So, anyway, I later learned that this was not a system that would work because, as I say, I was reading these books about gambling. But so the first step is you figure out a way to have an advantage, okay? And so now let's say that the game is poker and you are a better poker player than the guys you play with. The second part is to learn to get away with it, to learn how to make the most amount of money. And let's take the example of learning how to count cards at blackjack. You can actually have an advantage at blackjack by learning how to keep track of the cards. And there's a movie about it, the movie 21. It's also mentioned in the movie Rain Man. And so there are many people who buy books, they learn how to count cards, they go into the casino and start to play, and almost immediately they're told, sorry, sir, you can't play here anymore.
Wow.
Well, so that's where the psychology comes in. You have to be able to think about how am I going to count cards and not have them think I'm a card counter. And that is more than half the battle of learning how to actually make money at gambling, is learning how to actually extract the money from wherever it is you're extracting it from. So in my case, for some reason, so as I mentioned, I started out in backgammon and poker. Well, if you're playing backgammon, it's a game where to make the most amount of money, you don't want to play against good players. You want to play against really bad players. And I was able to play against players who would never play against other good players. But for some reason, maybe it was my personality, maybe it was my looks, whatever it was, they did not feel threatened by me. So, but I ended up giving up backgammon because it turned out that for me to make the most money, I really, you're going to make the most money by playing with people who are sick, who have a gambling problem, right? They're addicted and I just found it really distasteful to sort of seek out those people who were punishing themselves and had a problem. Whereas I have no qualms at all about taking money out of casinos. I love taking money out of casinos because I sort of look at them as the evil empire.
Um, you once said somewhere I read that every casino game can be potentially be beaten, correct?
Every
Um,
game can be beaten under the right circumstances. And
okay.
and now some games, those circumstances don't happen very often. It might be very rare, but I have a podcast called Gambling with an Edge, and on it we interview people who find ways to beat all kinds of gambling. And one of the things I'm really proud of on that show is that we have had people on the show that have figured out legitimate mathematical ways to beat almost anything you can think of, including the lottery. I
Wow.
mean, every game they have figured out ways to beat. And most people think, well, that's ridiculous. How could you possibly beat the lottery? But if you Google it, there are stories out there about people who have found ways to beat the lottery, and we've had two of them on our show.
I just thought of something. Uh, Before we went on air, I was telling you about my interview with watch where I go with this, because you made me think of this, Richard. I told you about my interview yesterday with an AI personality, and I walked away from that saying they're they're exploring, and this was my terminology. They're exploring the mind of God. That's where AI is going. All the interest in all the things they're learning. So my question to you is, uh, not necessarily God wants us to be very good gamblers, but is AI going to help gamblers in the future?
Oh, it already has.
It
It
has.
already has. Sure. So, the most successful gamblers in the world are guys who built computer models to beat horse racing. And so obviously, I mean, they started in the 80s and you know what computers were like in the 80s. And so now to be able to have the power of AI, uh, yes, and then maybe the next most successful gamblers are the guys who beat sports. So they build computer models to analyze,
Wow.
football, basketball, baseball, hockey, I mean, soccer, everything, right? And so, yeah, obviously AI, when you're building computer models to analyze things, obviously AI is a big help.
Wow. So, uh, so later on, when we're done, I'm going to go to AI and I'm going to ask it to help me with the lottery. I'm actually going to do that. I have four different AIs. Just for
I have a funny story about that because you got to
tell
know
me.
what you're doing when so the Mississippi Lottery asked ChatGPT,
Ah,
how can we increase our sales of lottery tickets? And they actually posted this on their website showing that what ChatGPT said. And ChatGPT's answer was, oh, you could greatly increase your lottery sales if you just tripled the prize money on all the tickets. Well, if you triple the prize money, you're giving away far more money than you are taking in the sales. This was one of the ways that someone beat the lottery, right? So the people running the game, I mean, this is part of the reason that um, people like me can be very successful in casinos is the people running the games really don't understand the games that they're offering. And they don't really understand gambling. The gambling industry has been taken over by MBAs and corporations, and they don't really understand the business at all. And, I like to say that the gambling business is so strong that these people make money in spite of themselves. They could make so much more money if they actually knew what they were doing.
so interesting. I got a funny story. I buy lottery tickets because that's my extent of gambling. I told you two things that happened to me gambling wise. It was like the biggest slap in the face. When I went with a handicapper and we bet 27 races at Monticello and lost all 27. So the slap in the face was God does not want you to gamble, Calvin. And then I told you the story last week. My son and I took a Rutgers football bus to see Rutgers play Pitt in Pittsburgh uh, um, uh, a bunch of years ago, and there were 52 people on the bus, and they actually had 50 raffles every 5 miles they're going to raffle something off. T-shirts, mugs, hats, all kinds of stuff. So they gave 50. They gave 50. But it was an 8-hour trip from Jersey to Pitt, maybe 6 hours, whatever. And every few miles, so 50 people on the bus got something, except two people, and that was me and my son. And you can't make that up. And again, another slap in the face. Don't gamble. But anyway, I buy lottery. So I buy lottery tickets. Yeah, yes, I do the Powerball because what the hell? It's a cheap $5 dream. Become a billionaire. I don't mess around with anything other than a billion. But they had a game. They had a game called Cash for Life. It was Cash for Life, and I literally used to win $5, $4, almost on every ticket.
Wait, I thought you said you never won anything
Well,
gambling.
guess what? Yes, but I didn't win the big one, but I was winning, and this went on for months. I would literally win, not every, but I would win a lot. Nothing major. I'd never go more than 20, 30 bucks, but I'm always winning. And this is great, and they actually took away the game a month ago
But
because
but isn't that interesting the way psychology works that you think of yourself as someone who never wins at gambling, and yet here you are telling me a story about how you used to win all the time. It
Yeah.
has to do with how we think about ourselves and the stories
Interesting.
we tell ourselves.
Interesting. Interesting. But it wasn't me. The point is, Richard, it wasn't me. It was a flaw in the game. However they constructed it, because they took it away. And they took it away from nobody takes away a lottery game. Nobody's taking away pick six, pick
Well, they
three.
changed them though.
Yeah, but
They switch up the games. Maybe that one wasn't as popular or
well, whatever. The fact that I was winning all the time, it was great. I mean, I didn't almost breaking even. So anyway, they
so
took it
from
away.
now on you have to stop saying you never win at gambling.
I guess. I guess. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
I'm still comfortable saying I don't win in gambling. Um, how sophisticated are casinos in detecting advantage players?
Bad. Really,
Bad?
really, really
Really?
bad. They are very good at detecting card counters, right? So counting cards. The first book was written in 1963 by a guy named Ed Thorpe called Beat the Dealer. So after 60 years, they have learned what card counting is and what it looks like, and they're very quick to catch people doing that and throw them out. And their technology is very good about disseminating your picture all over the place to other casinos. Um, but if you do anything other than counting cards, then they just don't have a clue. They have yeah, and the further away from Las Vegas you get, the stupider they get. I mean, they just second best would be Atlantic City because again, they've been around the longest. They've seen this movie before a lot, but yeah, as I say, they just don't have a clue. And really, for the last 25 years or something, if I get told I can't play anymore in a casino, it's either because somebody recognized me or we just won too much money. And they don't know what's going on, but they just say, like, sorry, you can't play anymore.
Wow. Is that so? Is that irrevocable, or that's it? You can't.
Oh,
You,
no, no, you
no.
change your look, you change your
Okay.
name,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. 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 Um, you you arrived. I'm always fascinated by Vegas. I've been there twice to celebrate my parents. I don't know, their 50th wedding anniversary. I think we took them, and that was my first time there. And I was a huge Sinatra fan. Loved the magic of Sinatra and the Rat Pack and Sammy and all those stories. So you arrived during a legendary era in Vegas. What was it like back then? Way different than it is now, obviously.
Oh, way different, way different. And back then, so I got to Las Vegas in 1977. And back then, you drove a few blocks off the strip and you were in desert. It was, I think there were 300,000 people living in the state of Nevada. Now we have over 2 million just in the Las Vegas Valley.
Wow.
Um, but the things that were great back then were you could drive right up to the door of the casino basically and park and walk in under a minute. Um, it was cheaper to eat in the casinos than you could cook the food at home.
Wow.
So it was incredibly cheap. When I first moved here, I was sharing an apartment with another guy. It was a furnished two-bedroom apartment for $250 a month, and you could go eat breakfast in the casino for 99 cents. Um, yeah, you could get like steak and eggs for 2.99,
Wow.
Um, the other thing, um, so for people who've seen the movie Casino, that is exactly when I got here. Frank Rosenthal, the character that De Niro was playing was running the Stardust Casino, and yeah, it was still the last vestiges of the mob running these places. Howard Hughes had bought a bunch of the casinos, and so things were just starting to change. And yeah, it was a great time to be here. It was really cool.
Is there a wild Las Vegas story that you truly experienced in that time?
Um,
Personally?
no, not sure what you mean by wild.
I don't know.
No,
It's just
I mean, one thing that comes to mind though was, and again, this will only make sense probably to the people who've seen the movie Casino, but uh, I got a job as a blackjack dealer at the Golden Nugget downtown on Fremont Street, and I was dealing there for 6, 7, 8 months, and I had a lot of regular customers who liked to come play at my table because I would talk to the players just the way we're talking now. I was fascinated by people. I wanted to know their stories. And so there was a local woman who would come and play at my table all the time. And one day she says to me, "Why are you not dealing out on the strip? Because if you're on the strip, you make much more money than you do working downtown." And the first thing I learned when I got to Las Vegas was everything is about what they call juice. And juice is your connections. You got to have juice. And so I said to her, "I don't have any juice, right? I don't know anybody on the strip who can give me a job." And she looked at me like I was an idiot. And she said, "Your father's a lawyer in Chicago and you don't think you have any juice?" And I was kind of taken aback. And I was like, "Oh, I never thought about that," right? So I called my dad and I said, "Hey, can you ask around and see if anybody can get me a job on the strip in Las Vegas?" Calls me back the next day and he says, "Yeah, go to the Stardust and talk to this guy, Frank Rosenthal, who is the Robert De Niro
oh
character
wow.
in
Wow.
Stardust." In yeah.
Wow.
Now, I had been in Vegas long enough to know that I did not want to work at the Stardust for Frank Rosenthal. And so I said, "You know what? I'll find my own job." But yeah, so I now I kind of wish I had gone just to have met him. But yeah, I remember when his car blew up, that was in the movie. uh,
Was that a
yeah.
true story,
Oh,
Casino?
absolutely.
Oh, that was a
Absolutely.
true
And in
story.
the movie, a plane lands on the golf course outside his door. That really happened. I remember when that was on the news. Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy times.
By the way, my cousin, um, my cousin and his wife Kaori my cousin Stuart have a wonderful door grooming. They're door groomers, and they came from Texas, and they retired, and they started doing their She's in like a world-class door groomer. So they have a couple places in Vegas.
In Las Vegas?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I forget what
Oh,
it's called.
yeah, you should give me the name. I'll check it out.
I'm going to. I'm gonna. We don't talk every day, obviously. Every few months. It's a great journey. Um, what I'd like to do now is I want to go off topic just a little bit, completely off topic, because one of my favorite journalists was Barbara Walters, and I plagiarized one of her questions. So be it, Richard. So here's a couple of questions. First, completely off topic, excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with. It could be one, two, three. There's no rules here. It's an interesting question.
Yeah. Wow. Um, a lot of people come to mind.
Sure.
Um, yeah. Um, you know, uh, so one that comes to mind, you as a podcaster, you must have had guests that you just wish you could have had on that you couldn't get for whatever reason. And one of them for me, one of a guy I greatly admired that I tried to get on the show before he died, and that's a guy named Danny Kahneman. And he wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. He won a Nobel Prize, and he was really one of the founders of behavioral economics.
Wow.
And if you've never read the book, it's a fascinating book about the way our minds work. And so that would be one guy I would love to uh, I mean, my mind goes to Jesus just to be able to
Sure.
say, hey, do
Sure.
these people really have it right? Or is this,
Yeah.
were you just a guy?
Yeah.
You know, um, Einstein would be obviously interesting. But you know what? Some of these guys, we've made up stories in our minds about what they're like. And, you might actually get to the meeting, the dinner with him and find out he's a cold fish. I don't know. But, in gambling, there's a guy named Titanic Thompson who there are just no end of crazy stories about the kinds of bets that he used to make, and yeah, I don't know.
That's fine.
Those are some that come to
That's
mind.
fine. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, I've been taking notes. I've been writing things down. I may be one of the only interviewers in American history who takes notes while he's interviewing somebody. So that's testament to you that I'm filling up pages of notes here. Well, because yes, I have it in the video, but I'm taking notes. My last off-topic question, excluding Casino, do you have any like favorite movies?
Oh, yeah, of course. So let me give you probably my top three,
Sure.
or certainly they'd be in my top five. Harold and Maude, um, unbelievably fantastic movie. City Lights, which is a Charlie Chaplin movie. Um, uh, The Wizard of Oz. Um, Casablanca.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the off-topic questions I like to ask my guest, and it's really selfish, is what is your favorite restaurant in Las Vegas that's not in a casino?
Oh, wow.
Because I love finding new restaurants, you know what I mean?
Oh,
So,
yes. Oh,
um,
that's cool.
but
Uh, I, 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 I always had a hard time processing that a great restaurant could be in a casino because it's like mass food.
oh no, 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 not anymore. Not anymore. Now it is the top chefs in the world have
Wow.
restaurants in these casinos. But, you're gonna pay, I think Joel Robuchon, I think it's $400 or $500 a head. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
they're not mass food at all. I mean, they have that. They have these buffets and, you know, but uh, no, they have some really, really world-class restaurants. But I mean, Vegas has become a tremendous food town. We have a Chinatown that is just fantastic. And yeah, a lot of really, really great food here in Las Vegas.
Okay. Okay. Um, Moving on. So, Richard, what inspired you to write Gambling Wizards, which I'm going to hold up, Conversation with the World's Greatest Gamblers? Uh, um, I
Yep.
haven't gotten to this yet, but I'm I think it's hugely fascinating because this is above and beyond just Vegas. You're talking about horse racing. You're talking about a bunch of different things in here. What inspired you to write this?
So I was on a plane to Hong Kong, and I was going to be working for a friend who has a horse racing uh, operation. He bets on horse racing all over the world, and he really is the inventor of computerized handicapping. And on the plane, I was reading a book called Market Wizards. And Market Wizards is a very successful, popular business book. It's a collection of interviews with commodities and futures traders. And uh, I read the book, and I was thinking while I was reading it, boy, professional gamblers are way more interesting than these guys. And I know a lot of professional gamblers, so I thought, why don't I do the same thing but interview professional gamblers? So as soon as I got there to Hong Kong, I asked my friend, "Hey, I have this idea. Could I interview you for the book?" And he was at the time he was like, I don't want the exposure. I don't want any kind of sort of eyes looking at my operation. He goes, but Alan will do it. And Alan was his main competitor. And so I called Alan and I said, will you do this? And he was like, yeah, sure. So that was the inspiration, and that was how I got started.
Okay. Um, what common traits, if there are any, do some of the world's greatest gamblers share? Do they share common traits?
Oh yeah, yeah. I would say they're all of above average intelligence. You don't have to be a math genius or anything like that, but I would say they're of above average intelligence. They are people that, for the most part, do not fit into the 9 to 5 world. They, I could not see any of them having a job where they had to answer to a boss, some idiot boss. Um, they often have a disdain for authority, so yeah, I think those are some of the things that are common among professional gamblers.
Okay. Um, so you play chess and gin rummy and backgammon and poker and blackjack, obviously at a very high level. I can't even conceive of that. What connects? Is there something that connects all these strategic games?
Yeah, I guess the ability to think ahead. Um, yeah, I mean, different games are different, right? Chess, it's really well, it's also, what else it is? It's pattern recognition. Like great chess players recognize patterns on the board that they've seen before, usually from studying other people's games. And I think that kind of pattern recognition can help in many games. Same thing in poker, right? Where you've seen a guy act a certain way in a certain spot before. So yeah, I guess that's part of it.
Okay. Um, again, I'm just trying to digest all this. So you've got to have enormous amounts, I'm assuming, of patience and discipline in what you do. Why is that, those two ingredients, difficult for most people? You've got to be patient and difficult in what you do.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, I mean, yes, you have to be patient. But the other thing is, most people hate risk. They hate losing much more than they like winning. And it takes a certain type of person to be okay with that. And when I first started counting cards, um, I lost money for 167 hours of play.
Wow.
And I kept saying to my friends, because we were playing on a team, And I kept saying, you have to come with me to the casino and watch me play because I must be doing something wrong. And three times they came out with me, they watched it, and they said, no, you didn't make any mistakes. You're just getting unlucky. And eventually it'll turn around. And after that 167 hours, I quit. I was like, this sucks. Either I'm the unluckiest person in the world or I just play bad when nobody's looking. And I'm just going to stick with my dealing job. And a good friend of mine, after 3 months, he had joined another team and they started making money like crazy. And he said, look, you got to give this another shot. Like we're making money like crazy and just give it another try. And so I said, okay, I went out and I started playing again. And now I started winning. And now that taught me, and just to finish that, pretty soon I was making more money playing than I was dealing, and I quit my dealing job and never looked back. But it taught me something really important, and that was I was not happy with an edge that small. When you're a card counter, your advantage is only about 1%. And because it's so small,
Is that it? 1%?
1%. Yeah. So because your edge is so small, you can go a long time losing. I mean, hundreds of hours. And I was like, you know what? I want a bigger edge than that. I don't want to lose for 167 hours. And so fortunately, I was able to discover things that gave me a bigger edge. And so, those losing streaks were not as bad. And but that is something that any professional gambler is going to have to learn to deal with. Either you can deal with that or you can't. And if you can't last in this business. But the thing is, um, you know, uh, when I was working in the film business, it was also a very high stress job. And I remember I got a great compliment from one of the camera people I was working with, and something was going wrong on the set. There was some problem that we were trying to fix, and you're always racing the clock. Either, the sun is going down or whatever the problem is, you have to be out of this location at a certain time. And people are starting to panic or whatever. And basically the cameraman said, Munchkin is unflappable because I guess it's just my nature. Maybe I learned it from the gambling business, but yeah, I was able to, in poker, they call it going on tilt. When something bad happens to you, you
Okay.
lose a hand that you're not supposed to lose because some guy gets lucky on the last card, and people go on tilt. And when they go on tilt, they play badly. So I thought that was one of my strengths was it would be very hard for me to go on tilt.
Okay. Okay. I like that on tilt expression. I might use that. Um, I'm going to
You're
incorporate
welcome
that.
to it.
Yes, I like
Public
that a
domain.
lot. So let's talk a little bit about your filmmaking and Hollywood stuff. So you worked as a writer, producer, director. You've been an actor. And how is this a valid question? How similar is the Hollywood and the gambling culture? Is it, are there some similarities?
No, it's
Different?
the opposite. So first of all, I mentioned that I wanted to be an actor. That was my plan. That was my training. And I got to Hollywood and I found out very quickly that the acting business was not at all what I was expecting. And that acting in film and television was not at all like acting in theater. So the first movie I got on, I got a very tiny part in this movie, and it was ABC Movie of the Week back when TV stations used to make movies. And, everybody came, my grandparents and my aunts and uncle, my friends were all there in the living room waiting for my scene. And it's time for my scene, and they cut, and my scene had been cut out of the movie completely. The next time I got a part, I ended up in the movie, but you see me from like 50 feet away on the back of my head and you hear my voice. And, when you're on stage in a play, even if you only have one line, the audience sees exactly what you deliver. And in a movie or TV, you are at the mercy of the director, the editor, the producer, whatever. I had one friend who was in a film and they dubbed his voice with a
Wow.
different actor because they decided they didn't like his New York accent.
Wow.
Um, so anyway, um, the final straw was I went to an audition and I walked in and they had a guy with a camera at the front of the room, and the casting director was in the back of the room and she was on the phone. So I go up and I'm there with the guy and I'm waiting for her to finish the phone call. And from the back of the room, she's like, "Go ahead, it's okay, just go ahead." And I said, "Well, I can wait for you to get off the phone." She goes, "No, that's all right. You just go ahead." And she talked on the phone through my entire audition. And I just was like, you know what? Screw these people. And shortly after that, I got a call from my agent, and they were like, "I have a commercial audition for you." And the first thought that went through my mind was, "Ugh, how can I get out of this?" And I knew it was over. I was done. That was it. I was not gonna do this. So how are those two cultures different? In gambling, I am the master of my fate. I work as much or as little as I want. I work when I want. Nobody is telling me I can or can't work. Well, the casinos can say you can't work here. You can't play here. But yeah, in the film business, you are at the mercy of all these other people just to get the job. And so yeah, that's
Is one industry more ruthless? Casinos, Hollywood, or uh,
oh
is that
yeah,
a
no, I
valid
would
question?
ru- uh yeah, I would say Hollywood is probably much more ruthless.
Okay,
Um, yeah.
okay, okay. Um, Moving on. Um, why did you name your podcast, which is on YouTube, Life is a Gamble?
Uh, so let me back up just a second. So I started doing a podcast with a friend actually, my friend started a podcast called Gambling with an Edge. He's also a professional gambler. It started out as an AM radio show, and he asked me 15 years ago to come on as a co-host with him. And so we did that show 52 weeks a year for, you know, years, decade. And eventually, I mean, we both kind of got burned out. And I started a second podcast called Life is a Gamble on my own. And we still do Gambling with an Edge, but we only do maybe one episode a month whenever we find a guest that we think is a good fit for that show. But I wanted a podcast where I could talk to people that weren't gamblers, because that show is just about gambling, and I wanted to be able to talk to people from all walks of life, and the theme of the show is that we all take gambles in our life that aren't about betting money, right? We take all kinds of risks, and so that was the impetus for Life as a Gamble, and like Gambling with an Edge, it's an occasional show. When I meet a guest that I think is interesting, then I do a show.
Okay. Um, what's the biggest uh, gamble you ever took that had nothing to do with money? Have you taken a big gamble?
Well, it's probably many. I think
Okay.
all of us have taken many if we really think about our lives. But I would say the first one was picking up and moving from Chicago, going to Las Vegas, knowing absolutely nobody, no connection, no job, no nothing. I was just going to move to Las Vegas and and become a professional gambler. So yeah, I would say that was a pretty big risk. The second one was moving to Los Angeles again. There, I did know one person, an old college friend, and so we were gonna be roommates. And but again, just moved to Hollywood, no connections, no job, no. I mean, I had gambling, but I'm gonna go try to make it as an actor. And
Pow-
yeah, I don't know. I'm sure if I thought about it, I'm sure there would be many more.
But those are by the way, powerful, powerful pieces of energy to make you to do that. I had a girlfriend in Chicago. She had an apartment on Fullerton, right near the park, and it was the summer of '76. And it was one of the best. I discovered Chicago, and I loved Chicago. And of course, I was crazy about her, and it was a storybook. We used to go biking, tandem biking, Lincoln Park, with some cheese and baguettes, and I mean, it was all picturesque stuff. And I'm a Jersey boy, 100%. And yet I said to her, I'm not moving in with you, but I need to come to Chicago. I love the city. I love the restaurants. They had some great restaurants there. The Pump Room, which was a little out of my budget. So I was poised, and this is the difference. You know what, Richard? It's the difference between you and I. I was poised to move to Chicago, and get my own apartment, take my pharmacy license, transfer it. And then when it really came time to do that, I chickened out and I didn't do it.
They psychologists have studied regret, and they find that the vast majority of things that people end up regretting are things they didn't do rather than things they did.
Ah, interesting. Well, my whole world, had I done that, obviously we wouldn't be sitting here talking. Uh, my grandchildren, I mean, my whole world.
Would be different, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which would be different. Maybe the world would be a different place. I don't know. So I don't have actually there's no regrets. I'm a happy guy, but I was so close to doing that and I didn't. And even there was a shot even of me trying out for the Chicago Bulls because I was a pretty good basketball player.
Hmm.
Uh, and there was some mechanics in play where I might have gotten a shot. That was way before Jordan, obviously.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
76. Yeah.
Yeah, way before. But anyway, it's interesting. Um, are there life lessons that people can learn from gamblers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I really tried to instill this in my kids. First of all, my mantra to my kids and their friends when they were little was math is where the money is. And the most important life lesson is the idea of expected value. And people, they start to hear anything that has to do with math, and they just kind of turn off. But expected value basically means um, I don't want to get into math. The idea is that your decision, whether you made the right decision or the wrong decision, has nothing to do with the result. Either it was the right decision or the wrong decision. In gambling, there you can tell because there's math behind it that can prove it. But um, but just because you lose the bet doesn't mean it was the wrong decision. And so if you can learn to make choices in your life based on positive expectation, that is like a tremendous life lesson. Um, so yeah, I wish I could think of a good example that didn't involve any math, but you hear this all the time where people say, "Oh, I made the wrong decision because it didn't work," but that doesn't mean it was the wrong decision.
Okay.
Here's an example. So every time you buy something electronic or an appliance, they want to sell you a warranty,
Yes.
right? That's
Yes.
gambling. All that is people in that business are gamblers, and they're saying, right, that the odds of your dishwasher breaking in the first 3 years are X, and if we charge this much for the warranty, we're going to end up having to pay this many people on the warranty, but we're taking in this much money. And so we have a profit. And in their case, a big profit. Okay. So now, if you buy that dishwasher and you don't buy the warranty, which you shouldn't, and now it breaks, and you say, "Oh man, I made the wrong decision. I should have bought the warranty." No, no, you made the right decision. You just happened to get a
Un
bad dishwasher.
Unlucky.
Yeah,
Unlucky. It's interesting. You said something about money, and you made me think. You'll like this. You made me think about one of my favorite quotes. Uh, there was a bank robber in the 20s. His name was Willie Sutton,
sure. Yeah,
and great bank robber. And they eventually they finally caught him, and they asked him why he keeps robbing banks, and he said, "Well, that's where the money is." I
right.
love that. There's some kind of a thing with gambling. Your world, your whole world, and part of your world, which is gambling, has that taught you anything of, about human nature? I mean, that's a loaded question.
Well, certainly what I mentioned before about learning that people don't like to take risks. Um, they are it in psychology. It's called risk averse. Um, and the another thing is, and a lot of this would be in this book by Danny Kahneman I mentioned, Thinking Fast and Slow. Um, there's something called recency bias. So what just happened recently carries much more weight in your mind than than what happened longer ago, and it often makes people make bad decisions because of what happened recently. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, there are lots of things like that that
Okay. Some rapid fire, quick answers. Does luck really exist, Richard?
yeah, only in retrospect though. So you can look at what happened in the past and say that was lucky or unlucky, but so yeah, we call that luck, but it doesn't help anything. It doesn't you can't predict your luck, you know. Um, I mean, you can predict that if you have an advantage in something that in the long run you're going to win. Um,
Now, in my world, in my little limited world, I associate with people. There's somebody coming to mind. I went to the Tyson Holyfield fight in Vegas. I forgot to tell you that. My he was a brother-in-law at the time. He went to a Miami Dolphins game. And my brother-in-law, and that's the question I wanted to ask you about luck. My brother-in-law was a lucky guy. My ex-brother-in-law was a lucky guy. Everything he touched turned to gold. I mean, so and I knew that, and everybody knew it. He's just a lucky guy. And so he went to a Miami Dolphins game, and all 60,000 people who came had a little thing that threw it into a big pot, and they drew one name out of that pot with 60,000, raffle things in there, and he won. So that was one out of 60,000. What did he win? He won two tickets, all expense paid trip, flight,
Wow.
hotel, and pretty good seats for the Tyson Holyfield fight, the first one. And
Wow.
nobody
I
wanted
was
to
at
go.
I
Nobody
was at
wanted.
all those fights. But uh and again, this is part of the way you beat casinos. They gave me those tickets and I sold mine for $10,000.
Are you kidding?
No. I think it
So I
was
could.
the third one where I got the $10,000.
Oh, okay. I mean, the
Um
first one, if I would have known that, I would have sold my ticket in a heartbeat. Are you kidding? Wow. Anyway, we went, but he won, and
Very short time as I recall too,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it was great. I actually was standing next to Quentin Tarantino. He was waiting in line to get popcorn. So I was literally behind him and Paul Sorvino, because I think at the time he was dating Mira Sorvino. I don't know, remember all that stuff, but they were all there. So was Robert Kardashian, one of O.J. Simpson's lawyers. I mean, to me, I'm such a groupie. To be around that was worth the trip. Just I didn't care about the fight. I don't like fighting anyway, but to be around, that. Uh, um, anyway, which leads me to my next rapid. Who would you say the best gambler you ever met is?
Um there's a guy named James Grosjean and he's just in another world. I mean, uh he is both a theoretician and a practitioner. And yeah, he's just amazing. I mean, he has the computer skills to analyze games, and he's got the casino skills to go in and take out the money. Um, So, if somebody said your life depends on it, you need one person to go into a casino and figure out a way to make money, hands down, that would be the guy.
Interesting. Last question. By the way, I could go on for hours more.
Yeah.
Just
You
tapping
might
into
have to
you.
cut it in two and make it two
Well,
parts or something.
just tapping into you because you are so fascinating, your journey. And I said it at the outset. This should be a movie, your entire life. It's a wonderful story, and I'm so glad you're here. So, anyway, my last question: Vegas in one word.
Wow. Maybe that's the word.
I
Wow.
think
I
that's
don't
the
know.
word. That's the word. That's the word. I love wow. It's one of my favorite words. Perfect. A perfect ending, Richard. This was great, and I'm so appreciative.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
To
Yeah, I'm
you,
happy to do it.
yeah, this is just great. I've never interviewed. I've done 800. I've done 500 real interviews all over the world, and this is just about as fascinating as I've ever done an interview because you're fascinating, and this world is fascinating, and of course, there's a million more questions to ask. Maybe you'll come back and we can do some deeper probing. It just that world just fascinates me. And despite what you said, I'm still saying I never win and I'm unlucky. But then again, I am lucky because I got to speak to you. So there.
There
A
you
nice way
go.
to end. So
Got a
thank
great
you, Richard.
family, right?
Yep,
Grandchildren, and
correct. I'm a
so
lucky
yeah,
guy. I'm
yeah.
even really lucky that they live down the street and it's a
You know,
wonderful life.
I when I grew up, my mother's parents lived literally across the street and my father's parents lived about 8 blocks away.
Wow.
And I was fortunate to have all four grandparents alive. And I think that really adds to, someone's growing up.
Yeah. Oh, it's I could talk for hours on the relationship I have with my grandchildren. They're little kids, 5 and 4, but it's so precious, and
Mm.
it's precious because they're close, and I see them, and it's just a wonderful. We do sleepovers. It's such a gift. By the way, it's a gift. It's a human gift to watch children grow, and the part of the gift is, at 6 o'clock they go home. So I'm done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
It's great. And diapers, all that stuff. Done. 6 o'clock. See you tomorrow. Boom, boom, boom. But anyway, this truly has been just a great time with you, and hopefully to be continued. And thank you, Richard, so much.
You're more than welcome. Thank
All
you.
right, I'm going to stop recording. Don't leave. We're going to do a little bit of a wrap.